what's most important to you? Because we can talk about all these high-level issues, but it's ultimately the crime in your area that becomes one of the key important issues, right? It becomes things like inflation and all the things that you need to buy on a day-to-day basis. But really the protection of our citizens on a daily basis becomes very important. So tomorrow's SONA is going to be very insignificant because it has to focus on some of those key issues that the president needs to address. South Africans want all those things to be addressed. Nobuhle Modise is also taking a closer look at the impact of particularly crime in KwaZulu-Natal. Let's remember just the situation we were facing at the start of this year with regards to the deaths that we saw, the gender-based violence, just the violence that we kept seeing, particularly out in that province. And she joins us now from KwaMashu in Durban. Then, Nobuhle, it's certainly a situation in which we saw that province reeling from a whole host of murders, a lot of them based on gender-based violence. It's going to be very critical to see what further steps President Cyril Ramaphosa can take. And it's going to be about more than just community policing.
Indeed, Arabile, the community of KwaZulu-Natal, are waiting with bated breath to hear how President Cyril Ramaphosa, will be tackling issues of crime. As you've mentioned, KwaZulu-Natal has been at the center of many violent and serious crimes. I mean, just yesterday morning, we woke up to news of a cash and transit heist on the N2 in Durban. And this was done in the early hours of the morning during very heavy morning peak traffic. And the attacks are getting even more brazen. And we know that there's a trend here in KwaZulu-Natal where assassinations are the order of the day, mass killings, where we see just yesterday as well, a tavern shooting in the Sundumbili area where someone walked into a tavern and started spraying people with bullets. And this is something that we report on continuously in the province. And as I said, the attacks are just getting even more brazen. But more interestingly is the fact that, those who are first responders and those who are trying, to find solutions with regards to tackling the crime in the province are also saying they are not being utilized the way they should. And this would be the aspect of the community policing forums. Just this weekend, the premier of the province, as you would know, that the community safety and liaison department has been absorbed into the premier's office. And he actually revealed just this weekend that it's one of those departments that is least funded. In fact, he used the words that there is actually no funding that goes towards that particular department. And we heard some CPF members from the pink area, and that would be Phoenix, Inanda, Ntuzuma, KwaMashu, which are one of those areas where crime is really rife. Inanda on its own, tops the criminal statistics every time those statistics are released, and we know that it's the murder capital of South Africa. But most of those CPF members who were in that meeting with the Premier just speaking to the fact that, yes, we want to help the community, we want to help fight crime, but you are not seeing us through in terms of compensation or even just giving us the tools to be able to fight, some of these things that we see. I spoke to someone from the Reaction Unit South Africa, which is also quite a first responder in the province. It's a security company where, they are the ones that are usually first on the scene before even the police in most cases. And he was saying that the most important relationship that should be, paid attention to is the one between the police, security companies and community policing forums. I want to bring into the conversation someone from the KwaMashu Community Policing Forum, and that is Ubabum Tempo, just for him to speak to us about some of those, challenges that they face as forums and those utterances that they made to the premier in the province, and also just what they expect, the president to touch on, especially when it comes to crime in the province. Thank you very much.
Yes, Sanbonan, hi. The one thing that we want as a forum of KwaMashu is at least a president maybe to recognize us in terms of maybe, because some of the guys that are working in the CPF or Abapelezi, all the other structures, we are currently not employed. So we would like the president maybe to find means in terms of maybe stipends for the other guys. Another thing, number two, what we discussed is the protection of the guys that are being used on the roads. Like, for example, if a person dies, there's no insurance, there's no cover, there's nothing. It's like the person was never there on the road. Another thing we wanted is for the president maybe to consider to buy things to make our life easier in terms of torches, trainings, so that we know exactly when we're facing we'll know exactly what to do. Because sometimes you'll find that a guy will chase a person that's carrying a gun. When he turns around, it's something else. So it's just a thing, kakulugas eziyinkinga.
And the other thing is that these are very violent criminals that we are dealing with. We see each and every other day when we report on the news the type of attacks that happen. I mentioned the CIT heist yesterday, people just getting shot in broad daylight. And you're saying you're not properly equipped to deal with those sort of situations. Is this why we see, the community then taking matters into their own hands, just like in the case in Inanda, where 5 people who were suspected to be criminals were hacked to death by allegedly community members?
Yes, sometimes people will take action because the thing is, I'm not blaming the police. It's just that they react at times very late. So let's say, for example, maybe we catch a criminal right now. Maybe a van will come after 2 hours. I'm just making an example. What a criminal will do, we can't just hold the criminal for that time. Sometimes they will turn, like you can never know. Maybe they'll be carrying a weapon. That's the thing, most of the time.
Lastly, let's maybe speak about what are some of the causes of these crimes that we see. What are the factors that contribute to the high level of crime within the pink area?
Mainly, I would say it's unemployment, poverty. Like, for example, guys will finish matric or some will have diplomas, but there's no jobs out there for them. So that is the main cause. And another thing what I usually saw, or I experienced even me, it's like we made adult. Let's say, for example, I know a guy that is a criminal, and I'll see him living a beautiful life, and while I'm doing the right things, but I'm not getting there. So they becomes like young people. They become like heroes to them in doing wrong things. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That is Pagamani Mthembu, who is part of the KwaMashu CPF Exco team, and speaking to us about some of the challenges they face and what they expect the president to touch on. And you would have heard him there speak of the fact that some of these criminals are quite young, and this is something that we've seen. Just last week, police had a shootout with a suspected gang member from the West gang in Nanda, and he's only said to be 22 years old. And these are the kind of violent crimes we are seeing that are being done by youngsters who, as you would have heard the CPF members say, it's because of deeper societal issues where unemployment plays a major role, Arabil.
Yeah, it certainly does. And of course, it's part of the plight that we continue to face across this country. Dealing with that could ultimately alleviate a major strain on South Africa's economy, particularly those of the woes of criminal activity that continue to happen.